So I'm aware I'm a little bit late to the party on this one, but I did want to go over the article published by Eurogamer at the end of January titled The Fall of Starbreeze, According to the People Who Lived Through It. Written by Wesley Poole, one of the staff members at Eurogamer, it involved over a month's investigation into Starbreeze's finances, what went wrong, whether writing was on the wall for certain people, the financial mismanagement, the development mismanagement, everything in between has been investigated in this article, including interviews with anonymous members of Starbreeze who both worked there or still work there at this point in time. There is a great deal of detail to this article. It is a very long article. For me, I'm going to record the entire length of the article and then cut it down to the parts that I think are most important. I will not cut it down too short, but I will not leave paragraphs in that repeat points here and there because the video will literally go on for half an hour. I've read this myself once in my own time and it took me about half an hour to read all the way through it, so I don't want to make a video that's that long. I want to make something that goes into enough detail but doesn't sum it up in such an extent that you're going to be writing out your will by the end of it. So I'll find a balance, cover everything, and then at the end of it, we'll get talking down in the comment section below about what we think. But as always, my name's Red Archer Live. Welcome to another video. Today, we're going to be looking at what went wrong with Starbreeze Studios. So the structure I'm going to go for with this article is I'm going to read right the way through each paragraph, and whenever I think there's a point where I should talk about something, I'll interrupt and add my thoughts on it. But the article begins by saying, at Starbreeze's 2016 Christmas meeting, held in a cinema close by to the studio's Stockholm headquarters, CEO Bo Anderson told staff the company was in rude health. Payday 2, a co-op first-person shooter Steam hit, was still making money, virtual reality investments were about getting ahead of the game, and in-development titles such as Raid World War II and Overkill's The Walking Dead were on course for success. Starbreeze's top brass even announced a new staff bonus system. The message was loud and clear. Starbreeze had evolved from the plucky developer of Payday into a big, important, successful entertainment company. How did things go so badly wrong in such a short space of time? According to over a dozen current and former Starbreeze staff members who asked to remain anonymous in order to protect their careers, the writing had been on the wall for some time. But even as staff lost faith in the studio and its bosses, nobody, it seemed, thought Starbreeze's fall from grace would turn out to be quite so dramatic. So we can see this article is going to go into a great deal of detail, but the thing I wanted to pick up on was that they're talking about the 2016 Christmas meeting where everything seems well. 2 years is all it took for everything to collapse for the company. And that's one of the things that I find so sad about it, and it's one time where I'm going to compare it to Telltale Games. It might not be the only time I do that this video, but it's another example of a company going so well, having all these opportunities and all these chances to put their efforts and their development plans and everything into these certain plans. They expand their companies, and then the decision to just execute it poorly, they take too much on, they misplan, they mismanage, and everything falls from underneath them, the rug's pulled from under their feet. It's a really sad case, and after what happened with Telltale, I didn't expect to see it for a very long time again, but Starbreeze sadly proved that, you never know what's going on with the game development business. So, anyway, let's continue in the article and get some more details. The story of New Starbreeze, those familiar with its history have told me, is really the story of Overkill, an independent developer set up by the people who used to run Grin, the Swedish studio founded by brothers Bo and Ulf Andersson in 1997 that's perhaps best known for building 2009's Bionic Commando for Capcom. Grin went under after its deal with Square Enix to make a Final Fantasy spin-off codenamed Fortress collapsed. So Bo and Ulf founded Overkill and made Payday, a small-scale co-op FPS that found a modest audience on Steam when it came out in 2011. But Overkill ended up in financial difficulty too. Enter Starbreeze. In 2012, Starbreeze was itself in dire straits after the troubled development of Syndicate for publisher EA. Before Syndicate even launched in February 2012, key staff left to form Wolfenstein developer Machine Games. Machine Games started up and were heavily recruiting, and it wasn't difficult for them, one person who worked at Starbreeze at the time told Eurogamer. By the end of Syndicate, we were just a small team finishing up the game. The Syndicate team was crushed, but Starbreeze still had the Brothers team. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons was led by outspoken designer, forgive me if I pronounce the name wrong, Josef Fares, and was Starbreeze's first owned intellectual property. But funding was needed to complete it. Effectively, Starbreeze was on the brink of bankruptcy. Enter Overkill. At this time, Payday was doing well enough, but it was not considered a smash hit. Overkill needed funding for development of the sequel, so Starbreeze and Overkill cooked up a plan to save both companies. Starbreeze took in money from investors with a rights issue and bought Overkill with shares. But according to people familiar with the deal, Starbreeze was in such a terrible financial position that these shares were essentially worthless. And so, the owners of Overkill were paid with so many worthless shares that they became the majority owners of Starbreeze by default. In 2012, just a couple of months after the launch of Syndicate, Starbreeze announced that it had acquired Overkill, but this announcement was misleading. The reality was that Overkill took over Starbreeze. In practice, Starbreeze was given away, one source says. On the other hand, both Starbreeze and Overkill would probably not have survived without this merger, and Payday 2 would never have been made. I think that's something worth emphasizing because there has been a lot of confusion for years, not just from other people but from myself as well, as to what the relationship was between Starbreeze Studios and Overkill Software. I think the idea that was created, at least, or was attempted to create, was that Starbreeze was the parent company. They owned Overkill, they managed everything, but they got on so well and they managed so well between each other that it was almost like a family. It seems very much like they were both working completely together. There wasn't really a parent company, because whoever worked with Overkill was working with Starbreeze, almost like a brother business, similar to the way Bo and Ulf Anderson were operating. The Starbreeze name moved from Uppsala, where the company was based, an hour's drive south to Stockholm and Overkill. Investors were sold on the idea of the merged Starbreeze Overkill having two original owned IPs, Brothers and Payday. The merger might have saved both companies, but it left a bad taste in the mouth of many staff who worked at Starbreeze before the takeover. I understand it was needed to avoid bankruptcy, one source said, but Overkill was never interested in taking over the studio and using our talent. The plan was always to use Starbreeze to bring in money, and then close the Starbreeze studio, which happened quite quickly. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons came out in August 2013 and was a critical darling, and Fairs, with his work as a contractor complete, left. It was the final old Starbreeze game to come out. Payday 2 launched in August 2013, and it was a monster hit. The game's phenomenal popularity ensured the DLC sold by the bucket load, and Starbreeze's share price soared. But internally, Starbreeze was tearing apart. According to multiple sources, Bo and Ulf had a bitter falling out, and I've been told Ulf, burned out by the making of Payday 2, wants to make something smaller scale. Bo, on the other hand, had greater ambitions. Bo bought his brother out of his share of the company they co-owned, Varvtra AB, which also happened to be Starbreeze's largest owner. Ulf, who was the creative chief of Payday while Bo handled business matters, went on to found a new independent developer called 10 Chambers Collective and set about making a new game titled, perhaps appropriately, GTFO. If you don't know what that stands for, you're probably too young to know. According to those close to the pair, the brothers do not speak to this day. As most of us know by now, Ulf, who voiced Wolf, left the company, removed all involvement with the company, set up 10 Chambers, and is now developing GTFO, a horror-based but similar style shooter to Payday 2, but completely disconnected from Starbreeze and Overkill Software. This is something that I've wondered about for a while, because I knew for a period of time that Bo Anderson was in charge of Starbreeze, he was the CEO, and that Ulf Anderson had been involved with Payday, he'd voiced Wolf, he was a developer, and I thought, same surname, they must be brothers, figured it out, but I wondered what was going on, because for years now, they haven't been working together, so to hear they still aren't talking to this day, that really sucks, and despite everything that's going on, I really hope that that does change at some point, because it's really not sad for these brothers to fall out and to not agree or see eye to eye on the company's businesses and everything in between. In August 2014, Starbreeze announced it had signed a deal with Skybound Entertainment to make Overkill's The Walking Dead for release in 2016. The project promised Payday meets The Walking Dead, and given how well Payday 2 had gone, there was plenty of excitement. Back then, Overkill's The Walking Dead was set to be built on Starbreeze's in-house diesel game engine, which was originally developed by Grin and first used in the 2001 game Ballistics before powering Payday. Game engines would prove particularly troublesome for Starbreeze. According to a person who worked at Starbreeze at the time, Bo Anderson's idea for The Walking Dead was that it would be a forever universe, a persistent, always interesting game players would come back to see what's changed. Over the years, there was talk of it being as big as Destiny, a game that would sell tens of millions of copies and last for a decade. It did not turn out this way, as we all know now. Meanwhile, Anderson invested in setting Starbreeze up as a boutique publisher. The first game it published was Canadian developer Behaviour Interactive's multiplayer horror title, Dead by Daylight, which launched in 2016 and went on to sell an impressive 3 million copies. Starbreeze eventually sold the publishing rights back to Behaviour in order to raise cash in 2018. Starbreeze also funded a handful of indie titles and signed publishing deals for Psychonauts 2 and System Shock 3. The latter two are yet to release. The Dead by Daylight deal worked out for Starbreeze, but some of the other deals struck were proper head-scratchers according to staff. In May 2015, Starbreeze announced it had invested $8 million in publishing Raid World War II, which was developed by Croatian studio Lion Game Lion. Lion Game Lion had worked on Payday 2 DLC for Overkill, so a relationship was already established. In fact, Lion Game Lion's bosses were old friends of Bo's, according to people familiar with the deal. Lion Game Lion co-founder Ilya Petruzik, for example, had worked with Bo at Grin. The Bo Anderson-Grin association is a running theme at Starbreeze. But Raid World War II looks disappointing from the off. Internally, Starbreeze staff considered it a bad investment and wondered why the company would fund an obvious Payday 2 competitor. Those who had played it thought it looked like little more than Payday 2 DLC. It's Payday 2 World War II, one source said. Why are we making this? Why are we competing with ourselves? Why don't we make this an expansion to Payday 2 or something like that? Starbreeze's deal for Raid World War II was supposed to see it recoup 120% of its investment plus a 50-50 royalty split. It's safe to say that it lost money. Within 3 months of its September 2017 launch, the game had an average of just 40 concurrent players. What's interesting here is that it's clear to see now that Lion Game Lion were not governed by Starbreeze Studios. Yes, they had a business relationship, but Starbreeze was not a parent company. They saw Lion Game Lion was working on a Payday competitor and decided that for some reason they would reach out, help publish it, and get it out the door, even though it was so similar to the game they were most known for publishing, Payday 2. It's mind-boggling to think that they actually sought this game out rather than just had an in-house studio developing it, because my attitude, and I'm sure a lot of people will probably have the same thoughts as me, was that they had this other company working there who'd helped out with Payday 2 DLC, they were governed by Starbreeze, and they thought, we'll try something similar to Payday, it's all under the same branch, we're all working together, let's give it a go and see if we can make another game like that, and Starbreeze were like, yeah, good idea. It was nothing like that. And looking at how it was organised now and how it was managed, it's really shocking to see Starbreeze even support the idea to start with. Also in May 2015, Starbreeze announced it had bought the Valhalla game engine with shares worth 73 million Swedish crowns, worth around £6 million, or in dollars, I think that's something like $7 or $8 million, but I'm not quite sure because I don't live in the US. The plan was for Valhalla to power all of Starbreeze's games, but the game engine itself was near unusable, according to those who had to use it. According to these people, Valhalla was essentially a renderer. There wasn't even a file open button when we got it, one person said. It was impossible to use, and this is when it all starts to get a bit messed up. All the while, Anderson's spending spree spread to virtual reality. In June 2015, Starbreeze bought French VR engineering firm Infinity for $2 million and set up Star VR, its virtual reality company. Anderson planned to launch a high-end VR headset and secured a $9 million investment from Taiwanese hardware and electronics company Acer to finance it. Starbreeze invested $10 million to set up and provide titles for a virtual reality theme park in Dubai. It signed a VR deal with IMAX VR now being dead, and it spent 7.1 million euros on a company called Nozon to build VR movie experiences. It bought an Indian outsourcing company called Druva and used it as a second studio. It opened offices in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Paris, and more. All expensive, high-profile locations that cost an arm and a leg, according to Starbreeze staff. Starbreeze made a John Wick VR game. It even opened a VR cafe in Stockholm, although according to locals, hardly anyone ever goes there. They needed a lot of titles to fill the VR centres, so we were just hitting up VR developers left, right and centre without any big background checks, one person who worked on the VR side of things said. They pretty much threw money blindly at that. And I've said this in my previous Starbreeze videos where I've talked about the mistakes they've made. VR to me was the biggest mess up they ever made. I know the development of Raid World War II was pretty poor, as we've discussed now, and Overkill's The Walking Dead, there'll be a lot more information going forward in the article about that, and that was a very, very big mess up, and probably the second biggest one. But the money they put into VR, I get that Bo wants to try and expand the company and do things that other companies weren't doing, but Starbreeze wasn't in a place to do that. It wasn't a good idea, and as we can see now, it was proven to be a bad idea because everything fell through. And the money that was put into that Star VR business and everything, the investments, the businesses they set up, the whole outsourcing, all the offices they set up, all that money could have been used so much better to make Overkill's The Walking Dead better, to make Raid World War II better, or hell, just put all the money into Payday 3, just to, bolster the company and prove that what was working could still work without adding even more fuel to the fire and instead just burning the fire out. While Bo was jetting off to sign Hollywood deals back in Stockholm, developers of The Walking Dead were fighting a losing battle with Valhalla. As one person tasked with building it said, bluntly, Valhalla was a piece of trash. It was unworkable, said another. In most cases, it was like the engine was fighting against you. Staff said Valhalla lacked a solid core from which the developers could build tools or create content. It was taking too long to develop to a decent level of usability, one person said. Valhalla felt to me like it was barely 50 or 60% of the way in terms of usability and stability. It was just not good. Like most engines, it had good potential, but it wasn't in a good place for people to properly develop a game. That was the problem. It was just way too far behind in the pipeline. The developers knew The Walking Dead would not meet its announced 2016 release window, and the game was then delayed to 2017. But the development issues continued. In 2017, Starbreeze management, finally admitting Valhalla hadn't worked out, tried to rescue the project by forking out for a license to use Epic Games' game engine, Unreal, instead. Starbreeze announced a switch in August 2017, a few months after it announced a new delay for the game, this time to the second half of 2018. You'd think the developers at Starbreeze would have rejoiced at finding out they had ditched Valhalla for Unreal, but they didn't, because they knew it meant they had just over a year to rebuild the entire game from scratch. In April 2017, Starbreeze staff were called to a company meeting. Management announced Overkill's The Walking Dead was moving over from Valhalla to Unreal. 2 years of work was chucked in the bin. The developers were stunned. People have been warning them for years, saying you need to use Unreal now, otherwise all the assets that everybody has been working on will be completely useless, one person said. And this is why I say the Walking Dead game is the second biggest mistake the company made. I mean, yeah, the VR, while you look at it, in terms of the press failures, Overkill's The Walking Dead was much worse. But I only picked the VR to be worse because of the investments that were put in poorly. The whole issue with The Walking Dead was poor management. To leave them for so long to work with Valhalla, even though it was an absolute mess, and they knew they weren't going to get very far with it, to wait all that time, those years of development, and then suddenly go, you know what, you've got 1 year, start from scratch, here's a new engine, go for the best, see what you can do. They knew, everyone knew that was a bad idea, but they still did it anyway. And it shows now the game came out. I mean, I've said before, if it comes out on consoles, I will still buy it, I will still play it. It looks like dumb fun, and that's all that matters to me. I think I would enjoy it. But it's clear to see there ain't enough content in there to have it even close to a Payday-style game, and that there are a lot of bugs that need addressing. I mean, Payday's buggy, but Overkill's The Walking Dead seems to be even worse. I mean, it's all proof that they didn't have enough time to make a game nearly as big or as expansive as they wanted to. They were talking about something like Destiny, and instead we got something like Payday 2 in 2013. And even that is being a bit of an exaggeration. Starbreeze staff were familiar with crunch, but it had been limited to 2 or 3 week bursts that revolved around project milestones, or for the Payday 2 team, seasonal Crime Fest events where 10 days worth of free DLC had to be made ready for release. As one local put it to me, Swedes don't do crunch unless it's to hit a crucial deadline. This is not to belittle these crunch periods, which according to those who worked through them, would sometimes involve 100-hour weeks and engineers and programmers who would end up sleeping in the office. We had producers coming in and getting people working until 2 AM in the morning and saying, we'll see you at 9 AM in the morning, one person said. One person told me they fainted after a 3-day stretch in which they didn't have time to eat because of their workload. Others have told me they felt ill because of stress sparked by mismanagement. The only thing they could suggest was go to the psychiatrist, one person said. Starbreeze did provide staff with private healthcare, one of the positive aspects of working there, praised by those Eurogamer spoke with, and some were able to use it to obtain 10 free sessions with a psychiatrist. Based on my conversations with the said Starbreeze staff, this option proved popular. For the Walking Dead team, crunch permeated 2018. Early in the year, the Walking Dead's producers realised the game looked likely to miss its launch window, so staff were asked to put more hours in to prevent it from slipping. Most of the problems we had in production, whatever the problem was, the answer was always, we have to work more, said one person. So of course, we started asking the team. However, this early 2018 effort to convince people to work longer hours didn't have the desired effect. As staff rapidly lost faith in the Walking Dead project, production realised a development sprint was the only way to get the game out at the door in time. So it looked for other ways to encourage staff to put in extra hours. Vacation days were offered in return for overtime, and then, when that failed to convince enough people to crunch, Starbreeze sweetened the deal and then added the option to cash out vacation days for money after the project wrapped up at the end of 2018. They put way more pressure on the team, one person involved with production said. Bo was on site way more often, we were finally admitting we were late, we never talked about, we have to fix this problem, never, that was never part of the discussion. All the leads were asked to make people stay to work more. Evenings and weekends, that was the deal. After multiple delays, a game engine switch, and months of crunch, Overkill's The Walking Dead launched on Steam on 6th of November 2018. It did not go down well. It's amazing we even managed to pull off something you were able to install on a PC in a single year, one developer told Eurogamer. We really tried to fix stuff as much as we could. This is why the game feels so alpha, another said. It's because it is. It's a year and a half in. It's a beta game because we made it in a year and a half. The Walking Dead failed to impress players, but it was a sales disaster for Starbreeze. Management had hoped it would sell millions of copies, and at launch, it sold under 100,000, Eurogamer understands. Millions of dollars spent on game engines, development, and marketing had gone down the drain, but crucially, the revenue The Walking Dead was supposed to provide, the money needed to keep the company going, simply wasn't there. Starbreeze's share price took a tumble, and it kept on tumbling. Dear hard-working Starbreeze crew, begins the company-wide email obtained by Eurogamer that Bo Anderson sent to the staff the day after he was fired. Goodbyes are hard. Game over, however, means try again. My goodbye, I'm sure, is nothing special. Yesterday, I was fired by the board as your CEO. In the email to staff sent the day after he was fired, Bo explains what happened from his perspective. He says, in short, the stock price is too low due to less sales, as our board put it, than expected, and too high costs than we could carry. Not sexy, and as CEO, that is my fault no matter what I did or tried. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do have the balls to have a vision and the will to create the future. Now, lots of should-haves and woulds have popped up. To that I say, go build your own company and good luck to you. We all know the name of the game, and this is at Overkill level difficulty. You were there with me, side by side, some of you, for over 10 years. Payday, wow, we turned that from an okay game to a super hit of the decade. It is an amazing achievement. I decided that I will build amazing games again. Will you? I will miss a lot of you, friends and colleagues. Being the CEO and sometimes producer / designer makes you go from one corporate stiff meeting to a super creative, exciting one day per day. It's a true roller coaster. The one thing that is amazing to see though is your devs grow and mature into seasoned veterans. Some of you are like sons and daughters to me. You make me so proud. I spent more time caring for you than my own children. And this is the point where I start to go from it was all Bo's fault to this is a bit of a yikes out of 10 from me, because it does still seem like a lot of it is Bo's fault, but not so much because he wanted to sink the company, but because he dreamed. He dared to dream. He dared to imagine the company to go to greater things, but he dreamed too much for what the company was and for what it had. And the fact that it affected his own personal life and his family life, and that he's just willing to mention that in an email while he says goodbye to the staff, I can't help but feel sorry for him in some ways, even though a lot of this is on him. Like, the things that he's done, I mean, yeah, a lot of it's his fault, but also he's not had a very good result out of it either. So, I mean, to still try and be optimistic about it, even in an email and not in person, that's something to really consider. Pushing hardware such as StarVR, Presents, and 3D engines has been exciting and challenging. Too early for the global trend, but boy, the VR headset is amazing. And who else built a VR park in Dubai? Bravo, he continues. I know people say that it was stupid now, but you guys did it, and if the trend would have caught up in time, we all would be heroes. It's about entertainment. Yes, you landed on the moon. Not too many people have done that. And that is a good point. If VR had picked up a few years earlier, Starbreeze could have ridden that wave. It is entirely possible. And then just as you might be starting to grow a bit of a liking towards Bo, a bit of pity towards him, we then have a bit of a change in tone. And then a paragraph that pretty much everyone I've spoken with for this feature has expressed shock and disappointment about. Personally though, I lost all my money, my family in divorce, and my kids' custody through the toil over the last 2 to 3 years, working 100-hour weeks for Starbreeze and keeping you devs paid and in the game. With less and less developers willing to put in the extra care in a product, it clearly limits the possible result of enough quality in time. This is a new era, and I did not leave the old one and adapt in time. My fault. It's okay. It's new times. He's really pushing the blame on everyone else but him, one person who worked on The Walking Dead said. It's a ridiculous thing to write. All in all, it was such an exciting ride. We made digital miracles together. I learned, suffered, and grew. However, in the end, the corporate side broke my soul and stamina. My dear board and I disagreed on the direction, and I'm out. Payday 3, my passion, my dream project, will most likely not involve me, and I leave that in your capable hands. However, we sure ended it in an epic way though. Thank you. Payday team, you rule. I will heal, see my kids the first time in 4 months, and then make enough cash to start over, and then who knows, I might write a book about it all. To all you devs, veterans, and fantastic support crews, it was an honour and life of adventure to be your captain. Now Nermark, the interim CEO, will take the wheel, and he is, as you know, a solid good guy. Give him your effort, trust, and you will get through this. Bo then asks staff to give his mother, who works at Starbreeze's Stockholm headquarters as office manager and, according to staff, was a sort of human resources person too, a hug, before delivering the final line. Maybe we will do this again. I will, in space. My Storm is coming. Storm is the codename for a game that's been coming for 10 years, one person said. An idea that originated from the Grin days. Apparently, it's supposed to be a payday in space kind of game. Storm is coming, but everyone was like, yeah, right. If Bo does continue on and try to set up another studio, this is the title he would work on. Starbreeze's dramatic financial crisis obviously has a lot to do with the failure of Overkill's The Walking Dead, but it also has a lot to do with the massive investments made by the company outside of its core business that failed to pay off. These investments in virtual reality, in costly studios abroad, and in expensive technology caused running costs to balloon. StarVR bled money, and the high-end VR headset it had partnered with Acer to build still hasn't come out. Raid World War II was such a flop that Starbreeze was forced to raise $30 million in a share sale to keep the company going until The Walking Dead came out. Then, when The Walking Dead flopped, Starbreeze simply didn't have any money left to keep the lights on. Now, administrators are deciding its fate. Based on Wesley's conversations with staff, most were unaware of just how severe Starbreeze's financial difficulties really were, or just how crucial The Walking Dead was to its survival. As one source put it to him, if they knew we needed this to sell 5 million copies to save the company, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would have left way before thinking this is not going to happen. But many knew that something was amiss with Starbreeze, and had been for some time. The amount of money being spent sometimes didn't add up, one person said. We figured they've got the money from Crossfire. They supposedly have got all this money from Payday 2. They must be saving it so they can make Payday 3. And then it was quite a big thing of, oh dear, they really are doing this badly. People were constantly talking about how Payday was basically paying for the whole studio. Essentially, that's accurate, another person said. But nobody knew how fast the money was being drained. We could see the news, how Acer bought shares back for StarVR, and stuff like that. And when you see these reports, you're like, oh dear, this is bad stuff. But no one knows how fast it is. Starbreeze then has gone from Sweden's golden child status to living on life support. Starbreeze was the cool kid on the stock market block, so cool in fact that the Prince of Sweden bought up shares until he sold them all in 2017. In truth, the studio hasn't had a hit since 2013's Payday 2. Since then, a string of costly failures and mismanagement has put Starbreeze on the brink of collapse. If it does go under, it'll leave hundreds out of work. If it manages to stay alive, well, there's a long list of creditors hoping for an unlikely payday. Nobody I spoke with for this feature wants to see Starbreeze go under. Despite all the difficulties at the studio, some have told me they consider it to be a good company in a great location that had a wonderful sense of camaraderie and character. But creditors are not known for their sentiment. If Starbreeze does go down, the stark worrying reality is around 200 people who live in or near the costly city of Stockholm will lose their jobs. Eurogamer contacted Starbreeze for comments on the various issues raised in this article. The company declined our interview request but did respond to an emailed list of questions with a statement from Mikael Nermark, acting CEO of Starbreeze. It is reproduced in full below. Coming into a CEO role at a phase that Starbreeze currently is in is never easy. I'm humble before the task at hand and will work my hardest to get our feet back on the ground as soon as possible. As the company currently is in reconstruction, the future is indeed uncertain, but myself and the rest of the management team are working very hard to stabilise and bring the company back to its core, games development. We recognise that there have been bumps in the road and that our development process may at times have seemed disorganised to our employees. That is one of my main goals to improve as we move forward. We are in a phase where we focus on moving us ahead as a company, but we will very soon shift our focus more inwards on improving our processes, our communication, and to provide a clearer framework for everyone to work within. Just to address some considerations specifically, on Overkill's The Walking Dead, the core team, producers and others worked hard and often late during the last year of production. Our goal was not to have a mandatory crunch, but when needed, specific people were asked if they were willing and able to finalise a feature or commit on a strictly situational level. To be absolutely clear, the whole team has a very high work ethic and we all worked hard together. On the technology switch, this did absolutely affect the timeline for Overkill's The Walking Dead. It was a business decision that came late, but also a necessity and something the producers tried to mitigate as best possible. I personally greatly appreciate and respect all the hard work all of our employees have put into all of our projects. We will work diligently at making sure everyone is given room to create great games according to their expertise, with clear goals set on an individual level aligned with our future overall strategy. And that brings an end to the article. Now, the only news we've had since then is that Payday Crime War is set to release very soon. That's their next port of call before they move on to everything else, which I presume will be either A, Payday 2 console DLC, B, Payday 3, or C, a mix of the both. Who knows which one they go for first. I think if they're going to prioritize either, it will be Payday 3 because that's going to generate the income for them, but hopefully they won't forget the console versions. I mean, my opinion is if they're going to make any more console updates to Payday, they might finish off the one they were partway through and then stop and just give up on any more development. They may end up doing that. I don't know. They don't even know themselves, I don't think, at this point. But it's given us a great deal more of information about how Raid World War II was not a good idea, how Overkill's The Walking Dead was a failed project from the start, from the way it was managed and poorly executed, and it shows that Bo really was to blame for a lot of the stuff. He was at fault for a lot of it, and while he tried to sound like it was the best he could do, he was being as optimistic and striving for the stars as much as possible. The last ending parts of his email where he blamed the other members of staff indirectly for saying, you know, it's really your fault for not putting the effort in, but that's fine, times have changed, I guess I'm just not really, you know, the way that you all are. It's basically indirectly saying that, yeah, I put all the effort in and put all the wrong ideas in, but I'm going to blame you because that's easier. I hope that Bo does manage to sort out things with his family. I mean, it sucks that that got to the position it is in. I'm not going to judge it or make any comments on it because we don't know everything. I mean, this article has gone into a great deal of detail, but as I always say with these articles online, take everything with a pinch of salt. Some details can easily be exaggerated, quotes can be changed around and reworded to sound better for an article. I honestly think from the way this was worded and the way this was presented that Wesley, you did an excellent job, and I do honestly believe a lot of this is accurate and not edited around purely to make it a better article. But that brings an end to the video. Now, I've spent about an hour recording this. I really don't know how I'm going to cut this down because in reading through it, there were so many parts that I wanted to keep in. So if you think there's any parts that you might want to hear more about, a link to the article, as expected, will be at the very top of the description. Go click that if you want to read any bits that I might have missed out. I've tried to surmise it as best as I can in editing, so hopefully that was good enough for you guys. Either way, thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, please do consider giving it a thumbs up. It's always very much appreciated, and show your support to Starbreeze by doing that as well. Every like on the video shows that you respect Starbreeze and you hope they get out of the situation they're in. And, you know, if Starbreeze Studios watch this and they see what people are saying, then, you know, leave them some well wishes and some good luck for everything going on. Payday 3, Payday Crime War, wherever else they do, leave your well wishes down in the comment section below. But other than that, thank you all for watching. I will see you all next week with a brand new video. If you are new around here, feel free to hit subscribe for more content. It's quick, it's free, and I'll always love you for doing so. But other than that, thank you all for watching. I'll see you all soon. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.